Hello boys and girls. Today Katherine is going to make a yogurt cake. First I'm going to turn on my oven to 170 degrees. I have here some Rough Puff Pastry that I made, and it was in the fridge and it's cold. Or you could use short crust pastry, but you have a video for the two of them, okay? So you have your pastry. So now we're just going to look at the utensils we're going to use. We're going to use a big bowl for mixing. We're going to use a quiche dish like that. It's about a medium-sized one. We're going to use measuring cups, pastry brush, a spoon, a fork, a rolling pin, or if you don't have one, you can use a bottle, a whisk, a knife, a spatula, a sieve, okay, and I think, and a peeler, okay, and my vegetable peeler, all right, and I'll have a chopping board and two small bowls as well. They can be glass or plastic, all right. So that's all of that. So the ingredients then we're going to look at, I have one large cooking apple. There will be some sugar on top of that. Then into the bowl we'll be putting self-raising flour, some margarine, a half a block of margarine, some sugar, a half a cup of sugar, and a cup of natural yogurt, and you can use any kind of natural yogurt. I used Glenisque because it's a very good flavour, and if you wanted you could put a flavoured yogurt, but I prefer the natural yogurt in it, okay, and one egg. All right, so we'll get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is to grease my dish, and I can do it with the margarine paper, as I said, or we can put the tiny drop of olive oil, and using my pastry brush I'll go all over it, right into the corners all around, okay, because I don't want it to stick, isn't that right? So then I'm going to get some flour and put a little bit of flour on my unit, and here is just, do you like my daffodils this morning, because it's springtime. Right, so here is my pastry, and you remember when we were rolling this out, we did 1, 2, 3, so that you kind of made ripples in it, trapping the air. Okay, so I'm just going to roll it out a bit, and I estimate that I'm only going to use about half of this. So I'm going to cut away half, and I'm going to hold that. We'll make something else nice out of that. Right, so I'm going to roll out this, and now it's quite hard because it has been in the fridge, which makes it much easier to work with than when it is sticky. So when you're using pastry and it's getting really sticky on you, make sure that you put it in the fridge for a couple of hours, come back, and it's much easier to work with. So you can see I am putting pressure on the rolling pin, but I'm checking all the time that it is lifting off. And nice cakes, all kinds of cakes, no matter what you're making out of pastry, are always better if your pastry is thin. They're also less fattening because you're using less pastry, so you get the filling in instead. Okay, so now that's much bigger than I need, but I want to have it thin so I can use it again. So then with my rolling pin, I put my rolling pin in and I just roll it gently over it. Now, you can lift it with your hands, but it'll surely break if you do. So always be careful. Just roll it over your rolling pin like that, and roll it very gently onto your dish. And then using your hand, push in, lift it up and push into the edges, right into the corners, because when pastry goes into the oven, it shrinks. So in order to stop it shrinking too much, you make sure that you've left enough. You don't stretch it. So we're putting it right into the corners all around, okay? So there, and I tap down on the edges. And when I've that done, then I lift it up with one hand and I cut around. Now I'm not going to cut across the top because I'm going to cut around at the side. Can you see? That way I'm also leaving that little extra bit of pastry there on the edge for it to shrink down. Okay, so moving it around very gently. Now if you were finding this hard, you could turn a bowl upside down maybe and put it on the bowl to help you to cut it. Okay, so we're cutting it off around the edge. It's coming up a little bit there, so I have to make sure that I'm keeping it down all around. Okay, so that is my base for my yogurt cake. Okay, there we go, and this bit will all be used again. We'll make something out of that as well. So I'm just going to leave it there for the moment, and I'm going to straight away tidy away my flour, okay, and wipe my unit. And wash my hands. Okay, there, it's all nice and clean again for working with. And I'm going to give it a dry with a tea towel. And I'm going to move over my apple. I'm going to get ready my apple. Right, so I have a lovely cooking apple here. You can do it with your, you can peel it with your knife, or with your vegetable peeler is probably much safer for you. So pull away from yourself always, never towards your fingers, all right? And when you're peeling, it's important not to be talking to other people, just to be concentrating on what you're doing, because that's when you cut yourself. So there my apple. I'm going to put my peels into a bowl here beside me, and they will go into the compost bin. Okay. So now we're going to chop up the apple. Okay, so chop plenty slices off your apple like this. Okay, check if any of them have bits of core like that. You take that out. Okay, because that wouldn't be nice on in your cake. There's another one with a piece. All right, tiny bit of green there that I missed. So check it over like that, and if you find a few pieces of it, and then just chop it up. You want this nice and small now, because we're going to stew it a bit for the bottom of the cake, the bottom of the yogurt cake. Okay, so that's all chopped up there like that. So I'm going to put it into this bowl. And I'm going to put a tablespoon of water. Just a tablespoon of water with it down at the bottom. And a 1/4 cup of sugar. And just when you're measuring it, you know, you can just shake the sugar off like that into your bowl. Right, so that's for stewing your apples. We're going to cover it and put it into the microwave for 4 minutes. And we're doing this so that it'll be done when we need it. So we'll go ahead now and make the rest of our cake, all right? So I'm going to get my big bowl. I'm going to get my big bowl and I'm going to sieve a cup of flour. And you remember how we measure our cup. We dig deep, make sure it's piled up high. And then with the back of our knife, we saw it off like that until it's nice and smooth. You can see that. So that goes into the sieve there. And we're going to sieve it gently. Okay, so I'm just going to put that to one side there now. And I'm going back to my margarine bowl. So into the margarine bowl, I'm going to put a half a cup of sugar. That's the green one. A half a cup of sugar. Again, pile it high. Make sure you have it full up and then shake it off. You don't need to use the knife for this one. Just shake it off until it's nice and level. Okay, so that goes into our margarine mix there. Get your wooden spoon and give it a mix. Okay. Next, I'm going to get another small bowl and I'm going to beat 2 eggs in it, okay? So crack your 2 eggs, open it out, let the egg drop in. Same again, let the egg gently pull it apart and we're going to beat the eggs with the fork. Good beating like that, and we're going to add this to the margarine and sugar mix as well. So this is a lovely cake with a number of layers. You have your pastry, you have your apple, and then you have your cake top. Okay, and now we're going to put in a half cup, which is the green one, a half cup of yogurt. Just going to use a spoon. Now I use natural yogurt for this. I just think it gives a very good flavour. I use Glenisk, it's a really nice yogurt, but you can use a flavoured one if you like. And it's just about one of the ordinary small pots. It's about the same size as that. Okay. So that goes in as well into my mix, and I made a little flop. Always clean up as you go. We're going to scrape all that out. Okay, so this has all the wet ingredients, we'll call them. The dry ingredients are generally your flour and your sugar, but in this instance with the sugar in here, but your liquid ingredients are all here together. Okay. So we're going to make a well now in the center of the flour, and we're going to I'm going to use my dry spatula to make a well in the center of the flour like that. I'm going to pour in the liquid. You see, always when you're adding liquid to flour or that, what you do is you start in the center and you just mix in the center, and you're taking in a little bit of flour as you go, Just, you see that motion right in the center, and you stay in the center, and you start to move out very gently out to the sides and bring in the flour, okay? You don't do this and pull it in. You just stay in the center like this. You'd often read recipes talking about make a well in the center, add your liquid, and then work it in like this. And you can still see the white of the flour there at the edges. And after a while, as I get out, now you could do this with the mixer, but there's no need. A gentle mix is much better. So gradually you can see the white of the flour is fading there at the edges. And I will keep going until I can see nothing, only yellow. Nearly there now. Okay, so I'm checking for any lumps. And if you get a lump, you can press it with your spoon. Press it to the side of the glass and get rid of it. Okay, so I'm just going to check that over. Yeah, it looks fine. Just make sure that any lumps are gone. Right, so that's the cake mix done. So now we're going to bring back our apple mix, but be very careful, just it might be hot. It might be very hot, so either use your oven gloves or a cloth, because microwave can be hot sometimes. And it is, I can feel it quite hot. So I'm going to hold on to it with my oven gloves, and you see I can mash up now. Mash up my apples and sugar mix with the fork. See it? So that's going to give a lovely base to the cake. The stewed apple at the bottom, okay? So we're going to put that in like that, and use our spatula. Okay, and spread it around. So you just spread it around like that. Now, if you like, you can use more than one apple, you know, if you have a bigger dish and you like a lot of apple in it. But one big cooking apple is usually enough. Okay, so there it is. And then on top of that now, we're going to put our cake mix. And when we're putting this out, we're going to put it out in pieces. Because if you put out a big lump together, it would press down and make a hole in the apple, and you would have no apple in the center and just apple around the sides. So we're gently putting it in like that. Can you see? Right, so now I'm going to have to put it flat so that it just doesn't start to fall to one side on me. And I'm going to get my spatula and I'm going to scrape out my bowl, scrape all the mix off my spoon. Scrape all your mixture as best you can to clean the bowl, put it in the places now where you have a bit of a hole. Now, okay, and again, gently does it all around. Just smooth it very lightly because you don't want to bring the apple up from the bottom, okay? So again, on with the oven gloves. I'll give you one look at it there, can you see? So on with the oven gloves again, and we're going to put it into the oven for 35 minutes at 170. Okay, so I'll set my timer for that. And so you'll have a beautiful yogurt cake with pastry at the bottom, a nice bit of stewed apple, and then the cake on top. And it's a really gorgeous dessert. And I'll show you that when it's cooked. I carefully bring it out of the oven, and I have something on my table. I have a chopping board here to put it on top of, right? So gently with your hand, tap it like that. And if you're happy that it's solid, remember now the apple will be soft underneath, so there will be a softness in it. But once you're happy that the top is sealed and you know, there's a nice little bit of a bounce in it, it's done. So that's your yogurt cake, and it's just gorgeous with custard, or of course cream as well, but custard or ice cream or anything like that, or just on its own for a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. Okay, happy cooking.